Karen shot at my tires for driving on Sunday. She was jailed for armed assault. The gunshot cracked through my quiet cul-de-sac at exactly 9:47 on a Sunday morning. My back tire exploded as I backed out of my own driveway, glass and rubber flying everywhere. I froze behind the wheel, heart slamming, staring at the smoking hole in my tire. Then I saw her, standing on her porch, a pistol still raised in her manicured hand. "My name is Craig Whitfield and this is how my HOA president tried to destroy my life." Her name was Karen Holbrook, president of Maple Ridge Estates Homeowners Association for 11 straight years. 6 months earlier, she was just an overbearing woman who left passive-aggressive notes on my door. I never imagined she'd escalate from paperwork violations to pulling a loaded weapon on me. But looking back now, every warning sign had been there, quietly building toward this exact moment. Maple Ridge was supposed to be my American dream, a quiet neighborhood for my daughter to grow up in. I'd bought the house 2 years ago, freshly divorced, determined to give Emma a stable home. Karen welcomed me with a fruit basket and a 70-page HOA rulebook thicker than most novels. "We take pride in our standards here," she said, smiling with teeth that never reached her eyes. I nodded politely, not realizing I'd just met the person who would nearly ruin everything I owned. The first violation letter came within a month, citing my mailbox post as structurally non-compliant. I laughed it off, paid the small fine and adjusted the post exactly as instructed. Then came letters about my grass height, my trash cans, even the color of my porch light bulb. Every letter had Karen's signature at the bottom, stamped with an almost gleeful flourish. I started noticing she never sent these letters to my neighbor Doug, whose lawn was far worse. Doug just shrugged when I asked. "She likes you less than she likes me," he said, half joking. I didn't understand the comment then, but I would understand it painfully well later. One afternoon, Karen cornered me at the mailboxes, complimenting my lovely tan Jeep a bit too long. She asked if I was single and I mentioned, carefully, that I was recently divorced. 024, her smile changed after that, sharpened into something calculating I couldn't quite name yet. Within 2 weeks, my violation letters tripled, arriving almost daily like clockwork punishment. I began photographing everything, my lawn, my trash cans, my porch, just to protect myself. Little did I know, that folder of photos would become my most powerful weapon months later. The first real clash happened over my daughter's basketball hoop, set up in our own driveway. Karen claimed it violated aesthetic uniformity and demanded I remove it within 48 hours. I refused, citing HOA bylaws that clearly permitted portable sports equipment for children under 16. She sent the community's private security guard to photograph my driveway like a crime scene. Emma cried that night, asking why the mean lady hated her basketball hoops so much. That was the moment I stopped being polite and started building a real paper trail. I requested copies of every HOA meeting minute for the past 3 years, citing my legal rights. Karen stalled for weeks, claiming the records were being reorganized by the property management company. A retired records clerk named Mrs. Alvarez, my neighbor, told me that excuse was completely false. "She's hiding something," Mrs. Alvarez whispered, watering her roses. "She always hides something, honey." I began attending every HOA board meeting, sitting quietly in the back, taking careful notes. Karen ran meetings like a courtroom drama, cutting off dissent with a single raised finger. I noticed board votes always seemed to favor contractors connected to Karen's brother-in-law's company. That detail felt small then, but it would become the crack that finally broke her empire. One Tuesday, Karen fined me $600 for a holiday inflatable snowman in December. The bylaws said decorations were allowed 14 days before and after any recognized holiday. I appealed in writing, attaching photos of 3 other homes with identical, unfined decorations. Karen denied my appeal in 4 sentences, citing board discretion with 0 further explanation. I paid the fine under protest, but I photographed the receipt and filed it carefully away. My folder was growing thick now, a quiet, methodical record of everything she was doing wrong. Then came the sprinkler incident, the first real escalation that made my neighbors start talking. My irrigation system malfunctioned one morning, spraying water directly onto Karen's prize rose bushes. I fixed it within the hour and personally apologized, offering to replace any damaged plants. Karen refused my apology, filmed the wet roses dramatically and posted it in our neighborhood group chat. Some residents show total disregard for community property, she wrote, tagging my name directly. Comments flooded in, some supportive of me, others parroting Karen's outrage without question. I stayed calm publicly, but privately I started reaching out to a real estate attorney. Her name was Priya Nandan, sharp, unbothered and immediately fascinated by my growing folder of evidence. HOA boards overstep constantly, Priya told me, but most people never document it like you have. She agreed to represent me pro bono initially, sensing something bigger brewing beneath the surface. Neither of us yet knew just how deep Karen's abuse of power actually went. The sprinkler incident, small as it seemed, became the spark for what followed next. Karen, emboldened by community support, decided her next target would be far more personal. 2 weeks later, Karen proposed a new, quiet hours rule specifically targeting Sunday morning activity. The rule banned driving through the neighborhood before 10 a.m. on Sundays, citing noise pollution. It passed by a narrow board vote, 4-3, with Karen casting the deciding tiebreak. I worked weekend shifts at the hospital lab, meaning early Sunday drives were non-negotiable for me. I requested a documented exception, attaching my work schedule and hospital employment verification letter. Karen denied it flatly, writing that personal inconvenience does not override community harmony standards. Priya reviewed the rule and found it directly violated state HOA governance statutes on restraint of trade. This rule can't legally target essential workers, she said, already drafting a formal legal complaint. I decided to keep driving to work anyway, following state law over an illegal HOA rule. Karen began waiting on her porch every single Sunday morning, watching my driveway like a hawk. She photographed my car leaving at 6:15 a.m., posting the timestamp with outraged commentary online. Neighbors started taking sides, some defending my job, others echoing Karen's "rules are rules" mantra. Doug told me quietly that Karen had once done something similar to a previous resident, years back. That family moved out fast, he said, lowering his voice. Nobody really knows the full story. I asked Mrs. Alvarez about it and her face went pale before she changed the subject entirely. That reaction planted a seed of unease I couldn't shake for the rest of that week. The following Sunday, Karen stood directly behind my car as I started backing out for work. I stopped immediately, terrified I'd hit her, and rolled down my window to ask what she wanted. "You are disturbing this community's peace," she said, voice trembling with something more than anger. I calmly explained my documented exception request was still pending review, exactly as required by law. She slapped my car hood so hard the alarm blared, startling both of us into silence. I filmed the entire interaction on my dashcam, something I'd installed weeks earlier out of caution. That dashcam footage would soon become the single most important piece of evidence in this story. The next Sunday, I braced myself, expecting another confrontation, but the driveway was eerily empty instead. I exhaled in relief, backed out slowly and started my usual route toward the hospital. That's when I heard it, a sharp crack, then the horrifying hiss of escaping air. My back tire had blown out completely and smoke curled from a fresh, unmistakable bullet hole. I looked up and saw Karen on her porch, a small pistol still raised, hand shaking violently. Neighbors' porch lights flicked on one by one as the gunshot echo faded into silence. I sat frozen behind the wheel, adrenaline flooding my body, unable to process what had just happened. Doug came sprinting from his yard, phone already at his ear, calling 911 without hesitation. "She shot at him," he screamed toward the street, voice cracking with pure disbelief. Karen lowered the gun slowly, her expression shifting from fury to sudden, dawning horror. "I was just trying to scare him," she stammered, backing toward her front door. Police sirens arrived within 6 minutes, red and blue lights washing over the entire cul-de-sac. Officers separated us immediately and I gave my statement while still visibly shaking from shock. My dashcam footage, still recording, captured the entire confrontation from the previous week too. One officer reviewed it on the spot and his expression hardened into something very serious. Karen was placed in handcuffs right there on her manicured lawn, in front of every neighbor. "This is a misunderstanding," she shouted as they guided her toward the patrol car. Emma watched from our front window, eyes wide, gripping the curtain with small, trembling fingers. I hugged her tightly that night, promising her that mean lady would never scare us again. The story hit local news by morning. HOA president arrested for shooting at resident's tire. Reporters camped outside our cul-de-sac and my phone buzzed non-stop with messages from neighbors. Priya called immediately, voice sharp with focus. "Craig, this changes absolutely everything for our case." She explained that criminal charges would run alongside our civil complaint about the illegal quiet hours rule. I felt a strange mixture of vindication and lingering fear as reporters mentioned Karen's name repeatedly. That evening, an anonymous message appeared in my inbox, simply reading, "There's more. Check her past." I stared at the message for a long time before forwarding it directly to Priya. She traced the sender to a burner email but couldn't confirm who exactly had sent it. Still, the message haunted me, especially after Mrs. Alvarez's strange reaction days earlier. The following morning, Karen posted bail, her mugshot already circulating across 3 local news outlets. She released a statement calling the shooting an accidental discharge during a personal safety demonstration. Nobody in the neighborhood group chat believed a single word of that convenient explanation. Doug posted the dashcam clip publicly and it gathered over 200,000 views by nightfall. Comments poured in from strangers nationwide, outraged at what they were calling HOA Karen syndrome. Meanwhile, Priya uncovered something odd buried in Maple Ridge's financial disclosure documents from last year. A landscaping contract worth $90,000 had gone to a company registered under Karen's maiden name. That contractor was supposedly her brother-in-law's business, yet the ownership records told a different story entirely. "Craig," Priya said quietly, "I think this shooting is the smallest problem Karen actually has." Priya spent the next week pulling every HOA financial record filed with the county recorder's office. The landscaping company, Greenscape Solutions, had received 4 separate no-bid contracts over 3 years. Each contract conveniently avoided the mandatory competitive bidding threshold by exactly $200. "That's not coincidence," Priya said. "That's someone who knows the rules well enough to game them." We requested a full independent audit, citing Karen's obvious conflict of interest as board president. Karen fought the audit request furiously, calling an emergency board meeting to block it entirely. I attended that meeting and for the first time, other board members openly questioned her decisions. A newer board member, Farah Osei, asked pointed questions Karen clearly hadn't prepared answers for. "Why does Greenscape always underbid by exactly the same amount?" Farah asked, flipping through documents. Karen's composure cracked slightly, her voice rising defensively as she accused Farah of stirring drama. The audit vote passed anyway, 3-2, with Karen storming out before the final tally. That storming out moment, caught on someone's phone, became another viral clip within 24 hours. Meanwhile, my criminal case against Karen moved forward, with an arraignment date set for early next month. The district attorney charged her with felony discharge of a firearm and reckless endangerment. Her defense attorney tried arguing the shooting was accidental, but the dashcam timeline destroyed that claim. Footage clearly showed her raising the pistol deliberately, aiming, then firing at my moving vehicle. Priya also filed our civil suit challenging the illegal quiet hours rule under state HOA statutes. We requested compensatory damages for my tire, my emotional distress and mounting legal fees involved. Karen's lawyer tried settling quietly, offering $15,000 if I dropped everything immediately. I refused, remembering Emma's frightened face at that window and remembering Doug's warning about a past family. That refusal turned out to be exactly the right decision, though I didn't know it yet. A woman named Renata Cole contacted me through Facebook, saying she used to live in Maple Ridge. She was the family Doug had vaguely mentioned, the one who'd moved away years earlier. Renata explained Karen had targeted her family relentlessly after her husband ran against Karen for board president. The harassment escalated until their car was vandalized and police never found a suspect. I always suspected it was her, Renata wrote, but I had no proof and we just left. I forwarded everything to Priya, who added Renata as a potential witness supporting a pattern of harassment. This pattern of behavior evidence would prove critical in both the criminal trial and civil lawsuit ahead. Meanwhile, the independent audit results finally arrived and they were far worse than anyone expected. Greenscape Solutions had been paid for landscaping work that satellite imagery proved was never completed. Nearly $40,000 in HOA reserve funds had vanished into invoices for phantom services. Karen's brother-in-law, when questioned, claimed he never actually managed Greenscape's daily operations. Bank records showed the company's real signing authority belonged to Karen herself, under her maiden name. She's been embezzling from her own neighbors for years, Priya said, stunned by the audit's findings. The board voted unanimously to remove Karen as president, pending the outcome of criminal proceedings. Karen refused to accept the vote, claiming board bylaws required a resident-wide election to remove her. She barricaded herself in the HOA office, physically refusing to hand over the master keys. Security eventually arrived and calmly walked her out, though she screamed about witch hunts the entire time. That scene, filmed by 3 separate neighbors, spread across social media within a single afternoon. Local news picked up the embezzlement story, running the headline HOA President's Empire Crumbles Overnight. With Karen removed, Farah Osei stepped up as interim president, promising full transparency going forward. She immediately repealed the illegal quiet hours rule, apologizing publicly to me and to every essential worker affected. I felt a small wave of relief, but Karen's criminal case still loomed large ahead of us. Her attorney requested a plea deal, hoping to avoid a public trial covering both charges. The DA refused, citing overwhelming evidence and stating Karen deserved a full jury trial instead. Meanwhile, 3 more former Maple Ridge residents came forward after seeing the news coverage online. Each described similar patterns: sudden fines, aggressive letters and mysterious contracts favoring Karen's associates. One resident even shared a recording of Karen threatening to make his life hell over a fence dispute. Priya compiled everything into a devastating pattern of abuse exhibit for both upcoming legal proceedings. I started sleeping better, though Emma still flinched whenever she heard a car backfire outside. Therapy helped her slowly and I made sure she knew the mean lady was finally facing consequences. Karen, meanwhile, grew increasingly isolated, her once loyal allies on the board distancing themselves rapidly. Even her husband, rarely seen at community events, reportedly moved out during the embezzlement scandal. Neighbors whispered he'd known nothing about Greenscape, blindsided just like the rest of us. The trial date arrived on a gray Tuesday morning, courthouse steps crowded with local reporters. I testified first, describing the escalating harassment, the illegal rule and finally, that terrifying gunshot. The prosecutor played my dashcam footage for the jury and the courtroom went utterly silent. You could hear the gunshot crack through courtroom speakers and several jurors visibly flinched at the sound. Karen's own defense attorney seemed to wince, clearly aware how damaging that footage truly was. Renata testified next, describing the eerily similar harassment her family had endured years earlier. The defense objected repeatedly, but the judge allowed it as relevant pattern of behavior evidence. Then came the financial forensic accountant, walking the jury through Greenscape's phantom invoices in careful detail. Karen's face remained stone still throughout, though her hands trembled visibly against the defense table. On the 3rd day, Karen herself took the stand, against her attorney's clear advice. She claimed the gun went off accidentally while she was simply checking the safety mechanism. The prosecutor calmly asked why she'd been holding the gun outside at all on a Sunday morning. Karen hesitated, then admitted she'd wanted to scare him into compliance with the parking rule. That single admission, spoken under oath, effectively confirmed the prosecution's entire reckless endangerment argument. The courtroom buzzed quietly and I saw 2 jurors exchange a brief, telling glance. Closing arguments came the following morning, the prosecutor calling Karen a woman drunk on borrowed power. The jury deliberated for just under 3 hours before returning with their unanimous verdict. Guilty on both counts, felony discharge of a firearm and reckless endangerment of a community member. Karen's knees buckled slightly as the verdict was read, her attorney quickly steadying her arm. Sentencing was scheduled for 6 weeks later, pending additional review of her embezzlement charges too. Outside the courthouse, reporters shouted questions as Karen was led toward a waiting police vehicle. I stood quietly on the steps, Emma's small hand wrapped tightly around mine the entire time. "Is it over, Daddy?" she asked, looking up at me with cautious, hopeful eyes. "Almost, sweetheart," I told her. "The rest is just paperwork now, I promise you that." That night, our neighborhood group chat exploded with messages of relief and vindication for me. Even neighbors who'd once sided with Karen quietly apologized for not believing me sooner. The embezzlement charges moved forward separately, prosecutors building a case around the falsified Greenscape invoices. Karen's maiden name records proved she'd personally authorized every fraudulent payment over 3 full years. Her attorney finally negotiated a plea deal on the financial charges to limit further exposure. She pleaded guilty to embezzlement and fraud, agreeing to repay every stolen dollar with interest. The judge combined sentencing for all charges into a single, comprehensive hearing scheduled for October. Meanwhile, our civil lawsuit over the illegal quiet hours rule reached a quiet settlement agreement. Karen personally owed me $18,000 for damages, legal fees, and emotional distress combined. Renata and 2 other former residents filed their own civil claims shortly after mine settled. Farah, as interim president, worked with Priya to rewrite Maple Ridge's entire HOA governance charter. New rules required competitive bidding for every contract, plus mandatory financial audits every single year. I was nominated for a board seat myself and surprisingly, I decided to actually accept it. "Someone needs to keep watching," Doug told me, only half joking as he handed me the nomination form. Emma's basketball hoop stayed exactly where it was, untouched, unfined, standing proud in our driveway. October arrived quickly and the courthouse filled again for Karen's final combined sentencing hearing. The judge reviewed victim impact statements from myself, Renata and 2 other affected families. I spoke about Emma's nightmares, about the gunshot, about months of fear inside my own home. Renata spoke about fleeing her home years earlier, never receiving justice until this very moment. Karen, given a chance to speak, offered a brief, hollow apology lacking any real remorse. "I only wanted an orderly community," she said, and several people in the gallery scoffed audibly. The judge, unimpressed, cited her complete lack of accountability throughout the entire lengthy proceedings. She was sentenced to 4 years in state prison for the firearm and endangerment charges. An additional 3 years, served concurrently, covered the embezzlement and fraud convictions against her. She was also permanently barred from serving on any homeowners association board in the state. Karen sat motionless as the sentence was read, finally understanding the full weight of consequences. Bailiffs led her away in handcuffs and this time, there were no cameras waiting outside. The courtroom emptied quietly, relief settling over everyone who'd endured her reign for so long. Outside, Farah hugged me tightly. "Maple Ridge finally belongs to its actual residents again," she said. "I thought about that anonymous message from months ago, there's more. Check her past." We never did learn who sent it, though Priya suspected it came from inside Karen's own family. Some mysteries, I realized, don't need answers to still deliver their intended, quiet justice. Karen's house sold within weeks, bought by a young family with 2 small, laughing children. Her prize rose bushes were dug up and replaced with a simple, unremarkable vegetable garden. Emma played basketball in our driveway every single Sunday morning now, completely unafraid and unbothered. I still keep that old folder of photos and letters, tucked safely in a locked drawer. Not out of fear anymore, but as a reminder of exactly what quiet documentation can accomplish. Doug jokes that I should write a book about the year Karen tried to rule us all. Maybe someday I will, though for now, living peacefully feels like reward enough on its own. Renata and I still talk occasionally, 2 strangers bonded by the same overreaching, broken power. Emma asked me recently if bad people always get caught and I told her honestly, not always. But sometimes, I said, If you're patient and keep watching, the truth finds its own way out.